So in recent days, it's been revealed that Douglas Luiz is looking for a return to the Premier League after skipping out on Juventus training and just having a torrid time in the Serie A last season. And West Ham are interested in a loan move for Douglas Luiz that could bring him to the London Stadium this season. Am I interested? Yes, if it is a loan, I think that is the main thing. You've got to consider the budget, the players we need, the positions we need. I'm a big fan of Douglas Luiz. I think in the Premier League, you just have to look at his stats. For Villa, he was fantastic. Take into consideration he started 35 games, got 14 goal contributions, and then went to Juventus. It's an interesting one, isn't it? Like, in the Premier League, he just seemed to thrive, whereas in Juventus last year, it was injury-riddled. He only ended up making 3 starts, and it didn't go well for him in Serie A, scoring no goals, getting no assists. It was a year to forget for Douglas Luiz. I don't think that should deter West Ham from going in for Douglas Luiz on the basis of, in the Premier League, he does seem to fit, he does seem to thrive. If you look at the stats that we do have, him in the Premier League is a threat in a very good Aston Villa team. In the team that Graham Potter's building, I can see him fitting in quite well. He's a good option for us in the midfield. And, you know, say we don't get Tyler Morton or Harvey Elliott, or we get one and not the other, I think he'd be a really good option. Especially if Lucas Paqueta is to leave, or Edson Alvarez, or any of those midfielders, he would be a really good option. And the rumour was yesterday is that Guido Rodriguez is close to going, which would then allow David Luiz to come in. I don't know what club are interested in Guido Rodriguez though, or even close to getting him out the door, because again, I believe it was a Mexican side that we were supposedly going to sell Guido to, but that never came of anything, and we haven't really heard anything since. So I'm a bit perplexed and questioning where that's going to come from, but that's a question not for this video. Why do I want it to be a loan? Well, I think just because last year was an off year, I think that's the main thing. It's not only a budgetary reason. I think, you know, we don't know what happened. Obviously, something went wrong there if he's skipping out training already. You could say that is an attitude problem, and in ways it is. You know, if you're employed by a club, you should be turning up to training. But it's very clear he's not settled in. It's very clear that he's just not made it work in Italy. And he believes going back to England will help him. And he did seem to thrive with his football in England. I'm not saying, therefore, that I'm a big fan and it's not a bit of a red flag that he did skip training for Juventus. And there was a lot of breaks, you know, muscle breaks and things like that. I'm not inferring that he was skipping matches. I'm just saying that it's very clear that management, there was something going on there. And he did seem to miss out a lot of the season, whether it was under the term of rest or other phrases like that. Clearly something wasn't right, either physically or mentally, for him to be in the state to play football for Juventus, which is a massive shame. And I think, you know, luckily for us, it does decrease his value a bit, but I think the loan with an option to buy. I think Gio from Hammers Chat said a really good thing yesterday, which was a deal similar to Jean-Claude Todibo, I think would be what we would go for, which would be if he starts the next amount of games, we have to sign him. So it's an option that therefore would become an obligation dependent on how he plays, which I think is the most preferable thing for both clubs. You don't want a situation where if you're Juventus, you don't just want West Ham to come in and be like, oh, we might give you 25 million, we might not. Like, you can't do that. It's very rare, unless it's an up-and-coming player, that you would have that kind of deal. And I think if you're West Ham, you wouldn't want to be stuck in a mandatory buy if the Douglas Luiz of last season turns up. You'd want a Douglas Luiz from Aston Villa, and at that point, you'd probably be happy to pay the obligation. I also think it's quite smart. I'm a big fan of that kind of loan deal because although it does affect the bank balance in the next window, it's nice to have that player embedded in the squad already before he becomes a full West Ham player. I think that's incredibly important. I think that is a major factor as to why I think Jean-Claude Todibo this season will do really well. I really like Jean-Claude Todibo. I like his attitude. I like his interviews after the season, him coming out and being like, last season wasn't good enough. I know that, and clearly he had some injury issues, but he was just gassed on the pitch, wasn't he? But overall, I do think we're going to get a profit from Jean-Claude Todibo. I think, give him 2 seasons here, he'll probably move on. I think we signed him for 30-something million. See him going for 50. I know it's only 15 million profit, but on a defender, that is pretty decent. Now I'm spitballing numbers that might not even come to pass. Going back to Douglas Luiz, though, I think it makes sense. Again, the midfielder market is a lot easier than the striker market, as I discussed in yesterday's video about how muddled that is. There are options in the midfield, and I would prefer Harvey Elliott and Tyler Morton on permanent transfers, absolutely. But if we can't do that, or if we decide another midfielder goes that isn't Guido Rodriguez or Lucas Paqueta, if he is free of all charges, which we still haven't found out yet at the time of recording. It's currently 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and we're meant to find out today, so I will be making a YouTube short about that once we find out. I do think Douglas Luiz would fit the midfield. You know, he can be quite defensive in the midfield, but he's, as we've seen by his attacking stats, he can do it. He's very versatile. He's the defender with legs. He's not as good as Declan Rice, who used to be really good at that. I'm not saying he is that or would replace Declan, but he would give us something we didn't have last year, which was legs, which was movement in the midfield. It will give us that option to pass through the middle, which I think we're lacking. You know, I can't wait to make, before we get to the first game of the season when I do my predicted 11 for the Sunderland game, I cannot wait to look at that and hopefully have some midfielders with legs as an option to select for West Ham, rather than just the static midfield which we have now. Douglas Luiz, to me, it seems like a really good player. It's hard to determine how much the option/mandatory buy would be. He's one of those players that, again, if you're going off his Aston Villa form, you could easily put it at quite a bit of money. Off last season, you'd probably think it'd be a hell of a lot lower. So I think Juventus will aim for something in the middle, knowing that he's Premier League proven and knowing that he can do it in the Premier League, but also knowing that they're not really in the position to be able to... They don't have much wiggle room to suggest that he is still a top player at the minute. This loan will prove that. And I think it's important for West Ham to get a player in like this. I said use the loan market. I really like what we tried to do last year with Carlos Soler. Didn't really work. I was a big fan of Carlos Soler. I loved his work rate. And actually, he was a midfielder with legs who clearly loved playing for the club. And every time he was on the pitch, did try his absolute best. I think his wages would have been an issue. And I think overall, he just didn't make enough of an impact to earn the permanent transfer. I know earn's not the right word, but I think if West Ham found out we were signing him permanently, I don't think everyone would be like, what are we doing? But I think it would be a... Okay. It wouldn't be a this is a really good transfer. It would be a this is a fine transfer. He'll be all right as a squad player, but his wages will be ridiculous. I'm very happy that I'm not talking about Callum Wilson today. I'm very happy I'm talking about a player that I actually think would progress us forward. He's only turned 27 recently. He's still got a lot of fuel in the tank, still ready to go, still got a few years in him if we did decide to buy him permanently. And again, they're only subtle links to West Ham, but I do think it'd be a club that would suit him. I don't really know any other club that would really go after him. I don't know any other club where if he did loan, he would be one of the first midfielders on the team sheet. At West Ham, he certainly is. And you could say that is an indictment of our midfield, sure. But I also think it shows the quality of Douglas Luiz and the presence he has in the Premier League. Just to wrap this up, my preference would be Elliott and Morton still. If we can get those deals done, that'd be perfect. Elliott has also come out in the news recently and said that he wants to leave Liverpool. Not wants to leave is a bit of a wrong wording. He has to leave Liverpool because he wants to play in the World Cup. If it was up to him, he would play at Liverpool, but he knows that his place in the pecking order is getting lower and lower and lower with these new signings. And Tyler Morton, I think he's, nothing about that, but we've heard that he would be open to a move away from Liverpool. And certainly Liverpool in a lot of transfer, not controversy, but interesting things going on at the club, aren't they, because of the Alexander Isak thing. But anyway, back on track. Douglas Luiz with an option to buy, which could become permanent, I think is absolutely the perfect deal for West Ham and Juventus. And for me, I think I'd feel confident about that. I'd go, okay, well, if this works, we pay for him. If it doesn't work, it's no real big deal for West Ham. And Juventus get to loan him out again and try again, but it's not in our periphery, it's not in our brain. We can just kind of forget about him. But what do you guys think? Douglas Luiz, are you a fan? Are you not a fan? Do you reckon it's not the right move? Are you still waiting out for a Harvey Elliott or a Tyler Morton? Do you reckon just get him in anyway? Because if it is that sort of deal, it doesn't really matter. Please remember to like, comment and subscribe. Your support has been absolutely brilliant and I'm blown away. Thank you guys all so very much. Take it easy. I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.